Good morning. My name is Janet Kidder, and I'm joined here by my fellow Select Board members, Bill Helm and B.B. Hammond-Casey. We decided to have this meeting after hearing from voters at town meeting that there wasn't enough time or an opportunity to discuss important issues that were being voted on. This morning's meeting is designed to be a discussion. There will be no voting. We hope that you will feel comfortable asking questions and learning about some of the issues facing the town. Some of these issues may come before you at town meeting next March or at future town meetings. To give everyone who wants to speak an opportunity, please wait until you are recognized and you have the microphone before asking your question. Once you have asked the question or made your comment, please hand the mic back to the staff member. We ask that you ask only one question at a time because if you have additional questions, we're here after the meeting and the department heads will be here as well, so you can ask them. We will plan to wrap up this meeting by 10 a.m. Overall, the town of New London is in great shape. New London has dedicated and loyal employees who work hard for the town, as well as dedicated volunteer committees from the Planning Board, Recreation Commission, Board of Adjustment, Conservation, Archives, Energy, Waste Recycling, the Whipple Project, Citizens Committee, Housing, Emergency Management, Health and Welfare. All these people give untold hours contributing to the well-being of the town of New London. There are many important matters happening in town, and we will address a few of them this morning, beginning with the police department. To start off, we will play a video that will give you an idea of the facility we are talking about before we begin any discussion. Okay? Hi, I'm Janet Kidder, Chairman of the New London Select Board. I'm here with my colleagues, Bill Helm and B.B. Casey. We have asked Chief Cobb to create a video detailing why we all feel there's a need for a new police station. This need has been acknowledged for many years, and it is our hope that having seen this video, you will agree.
I think it's an excellent idea, Janet. And as a newcomer to the Select Board, I have conducted my own tour, and it's a credit to the police and the communications staff that they're able to function in the existing setup. However, we now need to turn our attention to the future to provide a facility that will serve the citizens of the town, as well as the police officers and the dispatchers who work there.
I agree. Before we put forth another proposal for a site for a town vote, we want to present to the voters via this video the need that we see. Thank you for viewing this video and for giving this important matter your consideration.
Hello, my name is Emily Cobb, and I serve as the police chief for the town of New London, a position that I've held for the past 3 years. The New London Police Department operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to serve you, the citizens. Our cohesive team is comprised of 9 full-time police officers, 5 full-time communication specialists, also known as dispatchers, and 1 full-time administrative assistant. We have a few part-time police officers and dispatchers as well that round out our team. Our highly trained department members work hard every day to provide you, the citizens, with the best and most professional public safety services possible. With many of our members living in New London and the surrounding communities, we place special emphasis on the importance of community policing, knowing your neighbors, and fairly and impartially enforcing the law while simultaneously staying current on public safety trends, best practices, and improved technology in our field. Some of the ways in which we do that is by attending a variety of training opportunities, applying for grant funding whenever possible, and working closely with our community partners and citizens like you to accomplish shared goals and objectives. One area that we'd like to partner with you on is in the planning of a new police facility. The New London Police Department has operated out of our current facility in one form or another for over 50 years. We have long since outgrown this space, enduring advancements in technology, ever-changing crime trends, and an increased demand for police services. Today, I'd like to outline for you some of the things that we face in our current facility, and I think they're important for you to understand. Let's head inside. One of the major concerns in our building is the location of critical infrastructure such as our radios, recording equipment, and security components in the same room as the sprinkler system. We have already experienced a failure in the sprinkler equipment and had water leaking in this room. This type of equipment should not be housed together. Not only is it very costly to move it, but we don't have any other space to move it to. Another area of concern is HVAC equipment being located in the attic directly above our dispatch center. There have been many leaks of that equipment over the years, and it is a bad situation to be in. Another unpleasant seat to be in, quite literally, is the call taker position sitting on the toilet answering calls during busy times. When the dispatch center is receiving an overwhelming amount of phone calls and radio traffic, during an extreme weather event, for instance, one of your police department members would be sitting on the toilet answering the phone and running the information out to the dispatchers. Also in the dispatch center, we have recently had to incorporate another temporary solution to this long-term problem of space constraints. Our recently awarded grant provides us with the opportunity for new software, which has spurred the need for us to expand the dispatch center to accommodate the necessary equipment. While this expansion will allow for more space, it is far from a long-term, sustainable solution for our dispatch center. You may have heard me mention in the past about the poor layout and inefficiency of our workspace. The design of our facility is not an appropriate layout for your police department and does not lend itself to pleasant working conditions in some circumstances. I have also said in the past that not all square feet are equal when it comes to efficiency and layout. Simple tasks such as wiring for new projects or technology needs can become long and costly due to the various iterations of construction and patchworked design of this building. There are numerous challenges associated with our workspace, including difficulty in focusing on items like report writing, contending with noise levels from other areas of the building, and a lack of privacy and confidentiality when meeting with other department members. Multifunctional spaces can be useful with proper application, but not to the detriment of any of the functions that it serves. Now let's head outside to highlight some of the concerns there. The first concern to highlight is the safety and security of the building itself. Being situated in the middle of a wide open, totally unsecured space is an unsafe situation for the police officers and dispatchers who work here. Some of the items we are faced with that are of great concern include searching vehicles for dangerous drugs while there are children within feet of this activity, needing to utilize a shared driveway with a residential home, resulting in congested parking of police cars, experiencing a lack of parking around our building, managing difficult ingress and egress points during emergency response, and a lack of security for our parking lot, driveway, and around major pieces of equipment such as our tower. These are all issues that negatively impact our daily activities.
Over the years, many studies have been conducted, and considerable time has been donated by citizen committees to assess the needs of the police department and the suitability of our location. Even if we were to take over the space currently occupied by the Recreation Department, difficulties we face, such as means of ingress and egress, parking, technology improvements, and safety and security would remain. Any solution that is offered and ultimately decided upon should be based upon it being a smart and sound investment for the future.
I hope we've been able to provide some insight to you as to the need for a new police facility today. I encourage you to become involved in the conversation and to provide your input going forward. The women and men of the New London Police Department put forth tremendous effort every day to provide you with the best public safety services possible, and we look forward to finding a solution that's right for our community. Thank you.
That link will be on the town's website if you wish to watch it again. Okay. So before I open this up for comments and questions, I thought you would like to hear from our select board about why they feel we need a new police station. Bill?
Thank you, Janet. I think the number one reason why we need a new police station is for public safety and security. As Emily showed in that video, there are a number of issues around the outside of the building, but also the inside of the building. The building is not a safe place at this point, given the issues of activity that go on in communities, unfortunately, in this era. In addition, technology is continuing to be an issue for us, as Emily pointed out. So I would point to security and technology as my two principal reasons why we need a new police facility.
Okay, Bibi?
Good morning. Well, being the new kid on the block, I've toured the facility, and I'm so proud of our police department and all the work that they do. And I think it's really important to have a new facility for them to support the staff and the work that they do and to support the community. I look forward to talking to members of the community, looking forward and getting your input on the best way that we can serve the town of New London. And hopefully we can have some good conversations and build up trust and have, I look forward to talking to all of you in this endeavor. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bibi. The New London Police Department started by having a small area in the basement of Whipple Town Hall. Whipple was built in 1918, sharing space with selectmen, town clerk, tax collector, as well as the district court judge who conducted court proceedings upstairs in the hall. In 1985, an addition was put onto Whipple, referred to as the Bucher Building, for use by the selectmen. The police department remained in the basement, using the space vacated by the selectmen. In 2000, when the selectmen moved out of the Bucher Building to its current location in the Academy Building, the police department was brought up from the basement, and they occupied the space left by the selectmen. A sally port was added for the police, and the dispatching area was also added. There was space for the district court, since the state required that the judge and clerk of court have office space as well as space for attorney conference rooms. This space is now being used by the Recreation Department. Just recently, however, a portion of the Recreation Department space has been added to the dispatching center for a new computer system. Chief Cobb secured a grant that required more space for the system than was available in the existing area. The changes to the police department have occurred only because there was space available after other departments moved to the Academy Building. In more than 50 years, we have never provided our police department with space designed for them from top to bottom. My hope is that with your support, we can find a piece of property that will house a future police building. The Select Board agrees that a new site should be selected, and that once the police leave, the Bucher Building and former court areas could be used for many other ways. For any commission to meet, for example, community center, recreation department, space for town boards, committees and commissions, welfare officer to meet with individuals in a safe, secure space, space for clean recyclables, emergency management office and command center, secured storage for voting materials, child care facility, and many other possibilities that the future may present us with, so we'd have a place to go. I'm now going to open the forum so that you have, if you want to make a comment or some questions, please raise your hand. And again, I ask you to make only one comment or one question. If you have additional things you'd like to say, speak to us afterwards, okay?
Good morning. Most of you know me in my role as moderator of town in the past, and then I was very honored to be picked to be the facilitator last year when there were a series of town forums on what should we do for long-range capital planning, including the police station, which was sort of a partial subject. So it's, I'm usually trying to be a neutral. I think I've done a really good job, but today I'm coming as an advocate for the police station. I learned a lot through facilitating the forums last year. I learned a lot from Colin Beasley and the Facilities Committee. I learned a lot from Paul Gorman and the Planning Committee. I learned a lot from conversations with Emily Cobb and some of the police. It's time to do something positive in this town for our police, not at the same location. I've listened to all the data. It's been cycling around a lot. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak today. we just have to do the best we can for our police, and what we're doing right now is not enough. So thank you for listening to me. I probably will never get picked to be moderator or facilitator again in this town, because actually, behind the curtain, I do have opinions, and on this one, I'm speaking out. Thank you.
Thanks, Cotton. Paul Vance is out back. Maybe give Paul the mic.
Hi, my name's Paul Vance, and I'm lucky to have been a member of the planning board for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, I don't know. As a member of the planning board, I was asked to participate in the investment program, the CIP committee, and I have been on that for 3 years. And I just wanted to note to the people here, we have looked extensively into the police station problem, talked to everybody year after year. For the last 4 years, since 2019, we have included in our report a request for the town, the selectmen, and the rest of the town to move forward with a better facility for the police. It's been a long time. There's been a tremendous number of studies and everything done, and I would just say that the CIP committee has been consistent in saying that now is the time to move forward.
Thank you, Paul. Other questions? Over here. Okay.
Thank you, Bob Lyon. Just a couple things. Whipple Hall, which is part of the building that the police station is part of, is one contiguous building, I believe. I think we've invested, what, $1 to $2 million to renovate that building, somewhere in that range. I might be off by a little bit, but the recent one was like $800,000. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful facility. We put money into an existing building. It's fantastic. I know a study has been done about renovating the current police station. I don't think anyone argues that we need something new. What's on the table now is how we do that. The second point I would make is our assessments just came in. And I would ask anybody here, has anybody's assessment not been at least 30%, 40%, 50% over what it was a few years ago? We haven't heard from the state. Okay, I see a hand. We haven't heard from the state yet about what our tax rate will be. Maybe our taxes will go down. Maybe they'll stay the same. Maybe they'll go up. We don't know yet. It's uncertain times, so we don't know what's going to happen with taxes. I've just heard this morning the Colby Sawyer nursing building they're putting up was originally slated for about $14 million. Now the expectation is $19 million. Why? Inflation, costs of labor. So a lot of things going into that. So my question to the board is, how much are you willing to spend on buying land and putting up a new police station? The last time we had this meeting, I heard it was $14 million, 12 to 14 to be conservative. I don't know what a renovation would cost, far less than that. We've put $2 million into Whipple, $1 million or $2 million. It's certainly not 14. Potential cost overruns, potential tax increases, just by whatever the state tells us to do. So how much is this board willing to spend on buying land, putting up a new police station, and how much of a tax increase will we face on top of everything else that's going on with the economy right now? Thank you. I'd like to get an answer on that.
All right, Bob. Thank you. I know I appreciate your comments. I think our first goal is to get a feeling with whether or not people agree that we do need a new police facility, and we will look to see what properties are available that might be suitable. So our first goal would be to buy land, and if we can find something and we can have it ready by town meeting, that would be our first proposal. With regard to how much it will cost to build something, that is just not possible to forecast. So I think what we have to do it in a measured way, find the property, do an engineering study, have the building design, and then show everybody at town meeting. This is not going to happen tomorrow. Even if we buy the property next year, we probably won't build anything for several years just because various difficulties doing it. So, I mean, I hope that we can do it sooner, but we'll have to find out. And we haven't gotten any estimates. We haven't done any of that. This is our initial phase. So thank you, Bob. I'm going to call in somebody else now. All right, here. Will.
Thank you. Is it on? Thank you. Good morning. My name is Charlie Giles. I've been blessed to live here in New London for nearly 50 years right now. When my wife and I left the service, I work in a profession where we were blessed and we could live in several different places and I could commute to work. We chose to bring my children back here to raise them in New London for the community feel, the people, the sense of belonging, the special things that make New London, but no small part. In fact, I would go as far as to say a huge part of the reason we decided to settle here in New London was the outstanding services of our safety personnel, our fire personnel, our police, our public works, the sense of peace of mind that they give us. We don't have a worry in the world, and we've lived a lot of different places in the country, and that is not always the case. There's some places where you can't rely on the police coming to the rescue like the cavalry, and in my humble opinion, I believe that anybody doing a dangerous job, for those people that are running towards people that I'm running away from or running into burning buildings that I'm running out of, there is no such thing as too safe and too much equipment and too much that we can do for them. But I'd like to point out this Machiavellian idea, and I don't know if anybody's given this a lot of thought. If, God forbid, somebody is injured or worse killed because we have a radio short out, and because of that our highly dedicated officers don't get the call in time or don't arrive at the scene in time or don't get there to save that person's life or well-being, it's going to be very difficult for us as a town to stand in front of a judge and explain how we had the opportunity to fix this problem and chose not to because it was too expensive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Colin?
Thanks, Phil. Colin Beasley. Listen, I only ask one thing, that we put all the data on the table, that we provide enough information on the alternatives so that people are informed. And with respect to the pricing, in fact, you can develop plans that will show the pricing of those options. Experts in this town, volunteer experts, have made it clear that the current building can be renovated to meet the police department needs. We should listen to the experts, and we should be able to develop a plan that provides the community with a full-blown cost of the options and the tax consequences. 9,400 square feet is pretty similar to 10,000 square feet. It can be worked on. The experts say it can be worked on. And clearly, renovating the existing facility is far less expensive than building a new one. And we should be able to go to a town meeting with a full-blown cost of the entire plan and the options, whether it's a new land and new building or a renovation. All those prices can be scoped out, the tax impact can be delivered, and we can give that information to the community, and then they can vote on it. That's just my view.
All right. Thanks, Colin.
My name is Robin Walkup. I've been here in New London for approximately 10, 12 years now. And I've heard this conversation at least for 4 years. There's been all kinds of studies done. There is disagreement of whether or not to use the existing building. It's in a very poor position as far as the location goes. I agree that there is very little space in there. And after seeing what the inside looks like, that's horrifying. We have kicked this can down the road. You have had many studies. I don't want my tax dollars going to any more studies on whether or not the building can be used or not used. Somebody will be in that building. It doesn't matter if it's the police or somebody else. It's time to move the police to a facility that is current, and if you had done this, or if we had done this 2 years ago or started it, the prices would have been much less. So nothing ever goes down, everything goes up as far as pricing. The longer you put this off, the more it's going to cost. It doesn't matter if it's 2 years from now or 10 years from now. We all know that the building costs have gone up, land prices have gone up. You could wait and see when the real estate market goes down to get a better price on land, but your building expenses are still going to be somewhat higher. And, you know, that's just life.
Thank you. Can you bring a mic up here, please?
Hi, I'm Isa Rex, and my husband Bob and I have lived here for about 20 years, this year as a matter of fact. And I did a tour of the police station back in the spring when they were offered. And I remember thinking, you wouldn't have a situation with your sprinkler system and your electronics in the same room in your own home, let alone in a public facility like this. And I'm definitely in favor of a new facility. I was wondering, in town, there is that piece of property where I understood it was donated to the town for fire practice. It's on 114, and they went through a whole exercise of burning down the building, and I was told it was donated to the town. Is that anything that's an option?
I'm not familiar with that, Isa. I don't know.
Well, because I drove by whenever it was earlier in the year, and the whole house was on fire, and it was a fire department practice, and it was burned down.
Oh, the Main Street. That property was not donated to the town.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's an empty lot.
Okay.
That's all I know. So, but we're definitely for an improvement of good quality, because we all know that technology is always changing, and we need that. Thank you.
Thank you, Isa. Okay. Anybody? Mark?
Good morning, Mark Vernon. Several studies have been referred to, and I'm just wondering, what those studies have shown regarding the capabilities and size of our police station as compared to towns of similar size and similar demographics. Thank you.
The first study we had done was, well, there have been numerous, but the first study that we did after the 2018 town meeting was a study done by the Harriman engineering firm. And they came out with different scenarios, but their final recommendation was to move, to not try to renovate the building or even buy the property next to it, because you still had the issues with access, egress, all of those things that Chief Cobb mentioned. Then there were people who weren't accepting of that proposal, so suggested we have another engineering study done. So we did do that, and they were able to move the boxes around and say that you can stay there. But unfortunately, it really doesn't solve many of the problems that were addressed with regard to the outside, the actual location of the police station. Those studies are online if you want to read them. They're lengthy, but be awake when you read it, or if you need to get sleepy. But still, we have had numerous studies done, and I think that we are past the point of having any more engineering firms look at that building. I had hoped originally with the Harriman study that, they would say, this is what you can do with this building, and that the police department would be pleased with it. But overall, the police know what they need, not what we need. So they will make their recommendations, and if it's not adequate, we're not going to go forward with it. We're not going to renovate that space one more time. Okay? Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Lund Harkins. I'm also on the Budget Committee, and I think I've heard this discussion too for about 10 years, but I'm sure it's gone on further. And I've definitely taken many tours, but just as a citizen, I wanted to share a couple of experiences that were personal to maybe get a better background. Having had to utilize the services of the police for some crimes on the internet, so to speak, that involved children, and then to have to go in and discuss this highly, emotional issue. There's no appropriate gathering spot. There is an interview room, but there's no place to check back in. It's an open room where everyone's congregated. And it just made me feel really uncomfortable during an already extremely uncomfortable personal situation. And I don't share that lightly with anyone because I don't want to share that with you, but it's part of the issue. And I also had to travel into the police department once to drop something off after I had surgery on my knee. Guess what, guys? It's not an easy place to get into. It is not even close to ADA compliant. You cannot physically get in there unless you go in, is it the basement, Chief? Through processing. If you're in a wheelchair, you would have to come in through the basement, go through processing, and then, is there an elevator? Okay, so if you need the police in this town and you're handicapped, sorry. These are legitimate problems, and I'm not going to take up too much more time, but I don't know how many more times we can continue to outline and highlight them, and it's not an appropriate space. And I love that somebody else said it will be used. We're not making more beautiful historic buildings. The space will be utilized. It's just not an appropriate place for the police.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Okay, anyone else?
Good morning. Hopefully not last. Rob Daly. I'm a resident for 36 years and a business owner. A renovation could fix the interior problems. A renovation can't solve the list of problems outside the building. Another problem that I'm aware of that I don't think has been discussed, if the police interview somebody that results in an arrest or somebody turns themselves in, to my knowledge, they're handcuffed, walked outside the building, around the front, and then coming in for the booking area. So during that point, you've got somebody in handcuffs that is the police department's responsibility. So it's another danger problem. So bottom line, the renovation fixes inside. It doesn't fix the whole list of problems on the outside.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else have a question? John?
Hi, I'm John Wilson. I've lived here for 53 years. And anyway, I think cost is the big concern. And if we need to have a design and a cost, and I'm not about ready to make any decisions until we have that going forward.
Correct, yeah.
I've looked online at several small town police station designs, and I'm always surprised that there doesn't seem to be one that's similar to the other. We always talk about how the police can make a decision on what should be best. We have some things down there now, such as the Sally Port, which was designed by the police because they thought that would be the better thing for us. So I think to impress the rest of the town and push your agenda forward, we really got to know what the cost of the land is, what the cost of this building is, and what the design of it is. Do we need 10,000 square feet or what? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Bill?
I can't not address the cost issue briefly. Unfortunately, my remarks at the town meeting in March were curtailed, and I wasn't able to tell you what I'm now going to tell you. In investigating the issue of cost for town meeting in March, I contacted the New Hampshire Loan Bank, and a range of costs for a bond for this project, depending on whether you think it's a $6 million or a $12 million project, is $250 to $500 a year on the individual tax bill. We're talking here about a project that will be good for 50 years. Most of the people in this room will not get the real benefit of that project. It's going to be the next generation, and we're talking about the ability of people in this town, and not all of them can do it, it, but many can, to be able to afford $250 to $500 a year for the highest level of expense that I've heard might be incurred in building this building. So rather than talking just about $6 million, $12 million, $14 million, I think it's important to focus on the issue of we will finance this with long-term debt, and it will cost the average taxpayer $250 to $500 a year. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Allison Seward. I've lived here for 12 years. On the topic of cost, is there any sense that there would be grant money available to help build the facility? Do we know from other towns' experience, is there state money that is offered for these kinds of projects?
I'm going to let Chief Cobb answer that question. I think she might have an idea about.
Good morning, Chief Emily Cobb. If there's grant money, I'll apply for it. I'm not afraid to do that. There might be some applications in terms of like emergency operations type money and things like that. So yeah, certainly if there's grant money available for any sort of new construction, I would apply for it.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any other questions, comments?
Good morning. I'm Christine Klink. I'm relatively new to the town, but not new to New Hampshire. I, too, am a retiree that's come in from out of the area after being gone a long time. The question that I have, and I've kind of heard bits and pieces and I'm learning along the way, is the solution we're looking at is looking at PD, and clearly there's a need. I've been part of enough operations trying to reconfigure locations and live within budgets and means. But something that I've learned over the years is we're getting more creative about the solutions and partnering with other communities. In some places, they've combined the PD and the fire department, several facilities, and put a nice new facility in. I understand there's been some discussion about that, but more interesting would be, we're a small town, we have a low crime rate. Yes, we need to take care of safety. Are we taking a look at what we can do to keep our police officers really well suited on the road, doing what they need on the road, giving them the technology and everything that they need there, and possibly taking a look at county resources and sharing, or side towns that are near us, for some of the solutions that we need for the safety, access issues, interviewing for privacy, and so forth. Are any of these studies, have they taken a look, and have we reached out to our neighbors and our county for that type of solution? Thank you.
Where is Chief Cobb? Okay, I'm going to turn this over to you again.
So I don't know that that's really the application for law enforcement in New Hampshire, and that that's the model that law enforcement in New Hampshire utilizes. We are a regional dispatch center, for those who might not know. So we dispatch for New London, Newbury, Sunapee, Sutton, Wilmot, and New London Ambulance Service. So we dispatch emergency services for all of those towns. So we work very closely already with a lot of those neighboring communities, and certainly with the Merrimack County Sheriff's Office and county resources that you mentioned. But I'm not real sure that there's an opportunity to share resources, I think, in the manner in which you're referring, like building space. Is that what you're saying as well? Or anything along, yeah. Each community is responsible for, its own law enforcement, and sometimes if you have a smaller community, you might have state police on call or anything like that. We don't have that because we have a population greater than 3,000 people. So the New London Police Department, well, as I said in the video, I guess, operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we provide all of our own police resources in that regard. We've been very fortunate over the years with the selectmen and with the budget committee to get the equipment we need, the cruisers that we need, the equipment, uniforms, training opportunities, and we also have a very generous benevolent association that sometimes helps pick up some of the wants instead of some of the needs over the years. So we've been very fortunate to be receiving a lot of that from the budget committee and select board and from you all. So that's not really the issue. I think it's more of the facility itself and what's going to suit a 21st century police department going into the future.
Okay, thank you, Chief Cobb. Okay, any other comments, questions?
My name is Bob Drent, and I think one factor that's going to impact people's thinking about and making decisions about this is the location. Are there certain locations, general locations, that can be excluded as part of the decision that's made? I mean, you got two entrances to 89, the north and the south. You have the center of town. You have out more in the wooded areas. How important is that? Because as people think about their decision, that's going to flavor how they think about it.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a comment on that?
We will look at all areas of town that are available, and we've already started doing that. I think ideally it would be wonderful if we could keep it either on Main Street or Newport Road, so that it's more in the center, what we consider the center of New London.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
John.
Oh, sorry, John?
John Ellis. With all the discussions we've had today, I'm requesting that we link the building and facilities report to the video, which will be placed on the web, so that we can evaluate the opportunities and the decisions that we're going to have to make once we leave this meeting to assess all the issues.
All right.
Would that be possible?
You can access the building and facilities report online on the town's website.
Understood, but I'd like it linked to this video that you placed before.
All right, we'll have to consider that, John. I can't answer that one way or the other right now. Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, then moving on, we're going to talk about some other things. And I'm going to call on Phil Sherman, who has been the clerk of the works, so to speak, of the Whipple Town Hall renovation.
Thank you, Janet. The selectmen asked me to give a very short status report on the Whipple renovations, so I will attempt to do so. I want to start by thanking Frank Anzalone and his team, the architect, North Branch Construction, the contractors, many members of the town staff, Colin Beasley and Rip Cross, who make up the other 2/3 of the volunteer committee that kept this thing moving. We want to remember that the scope of this project at the direction of the selectmen was to improve the meeting room or the assembly hall for the purpose of meetings. While that scope grew a little bit, and I'll explain that in a minute, it was in no manner a full renovation of Whipple Hall. More to come on that in a second. So we're closing in on completion. The hall will be available for use after Labor Day, although Kim tells me she's going to hold off a week before they start scheduling things. And we've been very happy with the team that was put together to do this project. We're substantially complete at this point. In fact, final cleaning is going on today. There is some delay on receipt of some heating and cooling equipment. You may have heard the term supply chain. Some of that will be in the next couple of weeks. Some of that will be in around the beginning of November, we are told at this point. After the reinstallation of the AV equipment, which should happen next week, furniture and some other sort of town side stuff needs to be moved back in and get places ready to go after Labor Day. So what did we actually do with your $800,000? New insulation in the walls. They were completely uninsulated. Additional insulation in the attic, which did have some but not enough. Additional acoustic panels on the ceiling. You'll recall that a couple of years ago, panels were installed on the walls. Interior painting, exterior painting, refinishing of the floor. Additional lighting. There's been, particularly at voting, a need for better lighting in the place. Additional outlets, because there will still be a need for some tabletop lighting for certain functions. We completed the fire sprinklers in Whipple, added them to the Bucher attic. That leaves only the Bucher first floor unsprinklered. That awaits some decisions as to what's going to happen with Bucher. We provided, I want to stress this, underlined, bold, and highlighted temporary patches to the Whipple roof. More to come on that in a minute. And caulked the cupola. We've added air conditioning. It is not a full-blown system. It is intended to cover most of the functions most of the time. We tried to draw balance with cost on that. We've also upgraded the heating system, mostly to reduce the noise from the existing cabinet heaters. We had an interesting situation where one of the chandeliers fell off the ceiling, kerplunk. Fortunately, it wasn't during a public meeting. Somebody may very well have gotten hurt badly or even killed. They are 1918, as near as we can tell, chandeliers. So the 4 of them were taken down. I'll call them structurally reinforced, put back together in a manner that they won't fall off the ceiling again. And then as a separate task, the selectmen did tag the expansion of the dispatch center in, mostly because we were using the same contractor. So while that wasn't part of the bond issue, it's funded from separate sources. It was done by the same contractor. That's functionally complete at this point. So budget-wise, it's like baseball. It's never over till it's over, but I'm very optimistic that we're going to bring things in under the allotted budget. I, again, want to conclude by saying that to remember the scope of this project, because these things tend to get lost in time. This was primarily to get the meeting hall ready to have meetings, fix the acoustics, fix the AV, do a bunch of that kind of stuff, heating and air conditioning. There is a significant amount of work left to do on Whipple. A contractor flew a drone over the roof and thought that it started at about $250,000 of work and goes up from there. So that's why we did temporary patches within our budget. We just don't want roof leaks on new acoustic panels. So more to follow on that at some appropriate time, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. He's done an amazing job on this. We really appreciate it. All right. So we talked about Whipple.
Thank you, Phil. I'll preface this by saying my question might sound a little bit strange. I'm just approaching it from a different point of view. Hopefully you'll see that. I take what you say on Whipple. It was really the intention was to renovate it for meeting space, correct? It was really for public meetings, for voting, to have a nice space for that. And I could make an argument, one could make the argument, it's really the absolute wrong place to have a meeting hall in town. Why? There's no parking. So where do people park when they go there? Now we have a beautiful, and you see where I'm going with this. I'm not criticizing it. We have a beautiful place, a fantastic building. You guys have done great work, but it's really the wrong place to have a meeting hall. There is absolutely zero parking. Somebody's going to get hit and killed driving through there on voting day or a meeting day. So one could make, and I'm not making it, I'm just saying one could make the argument. It's really in the wrong spot. And we should have looked for a different site, bought land, and put up a new meeting hall with a huge parking lot. And I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying one could look at it that way. So my question is, did you or did we ever consider getting land and putting up a new hall, because there is this major problem with parking? And my guess is we didn't, because it would be a lot cheaper and more efficient to renovate the hall. So if you can respond to that. And again, I'm not advocating that we should do it. I'm kind of taking that different point of view to kind of poke that a little bit and get your thinking on that. Thank you.
I'm going to chicken out. I read a book written by Cotton Cleveland. I have opinions on a lot of this stuff, but I'm not going to speak to them today. It wasn't part of this project, no.
Okay. Obviously, there's not a lot of open space in New London for other buildings. That's why it's been such a challenge for the police department finding a new location. Nevertheless, I think, and also I think one of the things that has been important to the community is preserving land, keeping it open, using it for agriculture, conserving it. So I'm not quite sure where we would put it. The Whipples gave the building to the town of New London for the express purpose originally as a library, but then when Mrs. Tracy gave her building to the town, we moved the library there, and it was agreed it would be used as a town hall. I would hate to see that building not used. It's such a lovely historic building, and if you're creative, there is parking all around the town common. It's just you might have to walk a little bit, and probably we could use the exercise. So we never considered another location. We just wanted to make Whipple a place to go that people were comfortable, and that's what I think we've done. Colin?
Hi, Colin Beasley. I just want to say we all owe Phil a great thanks. I mean, he's done an incredible job on this activity. And I think that Whipple Hall really serves as a great example of how the citizens working with the town officials can look at something, do the analysis, do the plan, and execute something. And I would encourage, if it's possible, when it's all finished, that we have sort of a, we don't need to have coffee or anything, but open up the doors to Whipple on some Saturday and invite the town to come in. It's absolutely gorgeous. It really came out great.
Thank you, Colin. Celeste?
I'm Celeste Cook. I've lived here most of my life. I just want to say that when you talk about Whipple Hall and the parking, if we were to move the police station, would we not have some parking available around Whipple Hall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Oh, Vahan?
Yeah, my name is Vahan Sarkisian. I've been in town about 45 years, or 47, I'm not even sure. But anyway, I just want to know if the selectmen have considered using the power of eminent domain for any of these projects.
I think that would be a last resort. I really do. But obviously, that is a possibility, but I can't imagine that we would go that route. Okay. All right, Bill?
Okay, so moving to a different topic, I've been asked to address issues of water and how it is affecting some development in town. First of all, just to make sure everybody understands what we're dealing with here, the New London Springfield Water Precinct is a separate corporate entity and its own Board of Commissioners. Meets monthly on the first Monday of each month at 4 o'clock. Several of us are regular attendees at their meetings, but the selectmen do not have any authority over the water precinct at this point. The precinct serves only a portion of the town and some parts of Springfield, also principally the Twin Lake Village, and it draws its water from wells on Colby Point in Little Lake Sunapee. So that's the factual base of the water situation. Many of us have our own wells, and that's the other source of water, obviously, in town. So at this point, and I've reviewed this with the water commissioners in the New London Springfield Water Precinct. First of all, residential single-family connections in the water precinct will continue to not be an issue. Normally, there are only 1 to 2 new connections a year, and that is not an issue. So if you have a piece of land in the water precinct in New London and you want to build a residential property, water connection is not an issue. Second of all, multi-user connections such as those asked for by Twin Pines and New London Place or Continuum will not be possible given the overall capacity of the system. However, the precinct will provide fire suppression water through these projects if needed. So, no water from the water precinct for large development projects. Third, the current system capacity is adequate to meet the needs of current customers and the small additions that I noted above. In recent years, improvements in water management here at Colby Sawyer, at the New London Hospital, which are the 2 largest users in town, along with lower enrollment at the college and the repurposing of the old middle school have all helped stabilize usage. And in the event of drought conditions, which have not happened this year, obviously, there are steps in place to do temporary restrictions on water irrigation of property, which is the principal use of water in the summer that it can be a problem. Fourth of all, the precinct anticipates replacing the water pump pipes along Main Street beginning next spring and continuing in increments into the following spring. So for the next 2 years, next 2 springs, summers, there will be work being done along Main Street in small segments to replace the water mains that are many years old along Main Street. And the precinct is working with Bob Harrington and the Public Works Department to minimize the problems along Main Street during those changes. And finally, the water precinct is conducting engineering studies to look at the long-term possible future sources of water and the costs associated with those sources. It's not easy. The Water Precinct owns no property in New London except for the very small piece where their office and garage is on the Old Stump Road. So this all involves looking at private property and what could be done to produce water off of the private property. So that said, before I'll take questions in a minute, let me just turn to the issue of Twin Pines and New London Place. At this particular point, Twin Pines is awaiting funding decision from the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority to proceed with their project. They do not believe that they will have problems drilling wells on the property and being able to proceed once they get that financing. David Crandall, who is the Director of Development and Communications for Twin Pines and a resident of New London, is here, and I'm sure, David, just put your hand up. Be happy to chat with anybody who's concerned about Twin Pines or what's now being called Long Meadow Commons after the meeting. I'm sure David will stick around for a short period of time. Third of all, in talking with the owners of the developers of New London Place, the Continuum Company, this week, the following can be said. First of all, they've received permission, okay, from the zoning board to take the well option as opposed to using town water for their project. There was a technical issue about the ability to do that, but that has been resolved. Second of all, in the next 60 to 90 days, they hope to be able to do a couple of test wells on that property to see what water can be found and what it would cost to do that. Then they would then proceed to construct wells and proceed with the project. I think many of you may have received a letter or will receive a letter from, if you're part of the so-called Compass Club this week, that outlines that. They say we're now working with our water consultant and with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and their engineer to determine the ideal location for the wells on the property. Once we have necessary approvals, we will build an access road to these locations. We hope to be able to drill the wells sometime in the next 60 days. So that's the status of that project at this point, and I think I'll pause there and see if there are questions or comments about the availability of water, what's going on with the housing developments and senior housing projects on County Road.
Are there questions? Anyone?
I think you've made it very clear as far as water, drinking water, but what about wastewater management?
Super. So we have to do something with the water after it's been used also. Unlike the water district, the selectmen are the commissioners for the septic system in the center of town. Again, not all of us are on the septic system, but those of us that are pay our septic bills to the town of New London. It is our understanding, the three of us, that there is ample capacity in the existing sewer plant in Sunapee to serve all of the needs that we've been talking about and that are projected for the future at this point.
Any other questions for Bill? Okay, Phoebe is going to talk about assessing.
See what they stuck me with? Yeah.
She got the short straw on this one.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Chris and Joe and Cara in the assessor's offices, all the work that they've done on this, all the calls that they've taken from people who got those letters in the mail in the last couple of weeks with their new assessed values. And I want to point out a newsletter that Chris wrote last week that can be linked, that's on the website. I'm basically just going to summarize this newsletter this morning for all of you. So first question, why did we do this? And so basically it's a state law that every municipality must reassess all their property values once every 5 years. The last time New London did it was in 2019. We did this 1 year sooner because our we were out of compliance statistically with state standards when it comes to the median ratio of our values as opposed to the sales data. Before the reassessment, our overall valuation, overall, for all property types, was about 62% to the overall market values, based on the sales data over the last 4 years. We haven't seen this kind of equalization rate since 2004. So why didn't everyone's valuations go up the same amount? That's because, as I said before, there's different property types. You've got single families, you've got multifamilies, the lakefront, the condominiums, and the commercial. So some, condo values may not have gone up exactly the same as single-family values or lakefront values. So, but overall, again, the median ratio was at 62%. Now that we've redone this, it should end up at around 98.5%. So what goes into the setting of this new valuation? Well, as I said, they do the revaluation every 5 years. So over that period of the 5 years, the town staff are going out and visiting each property, 20% of the properties each year, so that your property is getting visited once every 5 years. After their visit, they update their database with any changes that may have been made to the property along with the condition. Sales and market data is also put into the database, and calculations are made based on all of that data to come up with the new valuations. Exemptions and credits are taken into account, and new property values are generated. So where are we now, and how is the new tax rate calculated? Which everybody wants to know about the tax rate. After the letters went out to all the property owners, there was a period where property owners could call in and have a conversation about their new value. Chris McAllister and her staff have been responding to those calls and have made adjustments. That period is over, and Chris is finalizing the new values and will be submitting to the state DRA shortly, as soon as it's signed off by the three of us. We will then be put in a queue where the DRA will start reviewing each municipality valuations and appropriations and calculating the new tax rate. New tax rate should be issued sometime around the end of October, beginning of November, and then tax bills will be issued around, I don't know, Will's here, so he can talk about it if you have questions, beginning of December, I guess. The tax rate includes 4, sometimes 5 parts. Only one is the town portion. Then you have the school district budget portion, the county portion, and the state education tax. And then some people are paying the water precinct portion if they're living in the water precinct. Taxpayers will have another opportunity to appeal when they receive their tax bills and file for an abatement. So will my tax bill go up because I have this new higher valuation? We're not sure. That's what the state will do. Not necessarily. That tax rate it should go down. That is the update on the assessments, and if anybody has any questions, Chris McAllister is here, hopefully, and Will is here, so please.
Yes?
I do have a question, and I suspect there isn't an immediate answer, but maybe there's something on the horizon. One thing, besides the race from urban areas to the country during COVID that really bolstered all the pricing in our region, another thing that's affecting most towns in New Hampshire and around the country is the Airbnb industry. And the challenge in the assessment side of the house is you rightfully indicated that there are different categories and so different assessment rates for those categories. And what is essentially is happening is an entire home in a residentially zoned neighborhood is being used as an Airbnb, which is also pushing prices and values up when they go to sell. What I'm wondering is there anywhere in the assessment process to take that into consideration? Because if the guy next to me is Airbnb-ing the house and it pushes the value up $150,000, it pushes all the values in the neighborhood up $150,000, and those are people that are residential, living there full-time, or maybe living there part of the year, but it's still one of their primary homes or secondary homes. Thank you very much.
Chris McAllister is here, and we're going to let her address that.
Good morning. There's no way to quantify that in the market. And for the most part, we don't even know if a residential property is being used as an Airbnb. There's no requirement by us to demand the use of a property or understand the use of a property. There's no registration process. And even if there were, it's technically still a single-family residential home used by renters. And a lot of times they're not full-time renters. They're here a week, then the people that own the property will use it again and what have you. So there's no way to quantify that in the market at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are there any other questions? Okay. The selectmen are well aware of the difficulties of finding quality employees and keeping them once we find them. So we are conducting a wage and salary study. We are fortunate to have dedicated staff in New London and ensure that we are compensating them fairly. We engage the services of Municipal Resources to conduct a wage study for us. Municipal Resources is located in Plymouth, New Hampshire, and is well known in the municipal community for doing wage studies as well as providing staff to work on interim basis as a search to fill vacant positions is conducted. This will give us important data on what other communities are paying their staff so that we can position ourselves in a way that we don't lose staff because of salary and we can attract employees when needed. The last wage study was conducted in 2016. Carol Granfield, the project manager for this study, will present the findings to the Board of Selectmen on September 14th. The information provided will assist the selectmen in determining whether adjustments are needed, and we can also use this information into preparation for the fiscal year 2025 budget. Details on what the wage study will cover are available on the Selectmen's page of the town website once we have heard the report. We encourage you to attend the Selectmen's meeting on September 14th to hear more about this important topic. Do I have any questions about this? No? Okay. Well, if there are no other questions about anything, does anyone have a concern that we haven't covered or they may want to know a little bit more about? Yes?
I have a question about the cyanobacter bloom in Little Centipede. What's the status of that? What are we doing about it?
I will turn this over to Putnam Kidder. He's our recreation director, and they monitor the water at both beaches.
Hi. So there was a bloom spotted on the 29th of July, and they tested it. The health department health officer tested it, and they sent it to DES, and they found a low amount of cyanobacteria present in that bloom over the course of the time when it was initially seen, and when we tested it, it had dissipated. As they do, they come up and then they go away, which makes it really difficult to monitor them. So because of that, it was placed on an alert. So for a week, it was put under an alert, and that means just that it's been spotted, it's been seen in the area, and that it could resurface. So as under alert, we put out as much information as we could about the situation. The alert was lifted a week after, and there's been no other sightings since then. But it was a really good opportunity for us to learn a lot about that situation, as the state is too, about these blooms this summer. With all the runoff, there seems to be more prevalence of those in water in the state. So that was an opportunity for us to learn more about the process and how we get the information out. But we want to have as much information as possible for people so they can make safe choices about using the water. So, but there's a really good website on DES with all the information about the blooms and what they're learning about them and safety risks involved.
Okay. Thank you, Putnam. Any other concerns? Yes?
Hi, Dorothy Dogan. I live at 62 Main, New London. When they end up doing the water,
closer.
Okay. When they end up redoing the water lines on Main Street, will they be redoing the sidewalks as well? Because the sidewalks are really atrocious.
Right.
I've seen one man going in his wheelchair down the road because of the, and I realize that they've done patchwork, but it's pretty bad. So I'm assuming they're going to be digging up part of the sidewalk to begin with. So is there any way that the town can say, I know the last meeting, they took money out because they said, well, out of the sidewalk project. So I'm assuming that this is going to be readdressed?
It is.
Okay.
We have waited to do, the sidewalks because we knew that there was going to be engineering done and that these water and sewer lines would be replaced. So that is the time that we would redo the sidewalk. And we agree, we know that it desperately needs to be improved.
Yeah, because we are a walking town, as
Right.
everybody knows.
We are, absolutely.
Thank
So it will be done, yes. Okay, Yep, Janet?
Thank you, Janet Miller Haynes, resident of Highland Ridge. I'd just like to know what the next steps are with regard to the police station issue.
Well, we hope to locate a piece of property that we think might be suitable, and if we can come to terms with whomever owns the property, that's what we'll do, and that's it. That's our next step. Until we have the property, we won't know what kind of a design is suitable for a piece of property or the engineering that will need to be done, so we need to locate a piece of property.
Is that an existing committee of people?
No, we have an idea of what pieces of property that might be available. Okay. Anyone? Okay, Chris?
I just wanted to comment. I don't live in town, but I work here regularly. And during this process of the revaluation, I got to speak with Emily, and we were concerned possibly for safety at the town office with, there was a significant jump in valuation, so there was a concern. I just want to support Emily and her staff with the police department. As I think you all know, the town is busting at the seams. There's not enough housing here. They've done studies. Now we need affordable housing in town, so the town's going to grow in valuation with that structure and project. The college is making huge investments. Continuum, if they ever get started, that'll be a huge investment in the town, which also means likely probably more town staff, and even the town office building is busting at the seams. So Bucher, Whipple, that would be great expansion space for the town office. And really, I mean, even the town office really could be a little more fortified safety-wise. But I care about my colleagues, and they deserve a good working environment, so I'm in support, and I'm always looking, I'm also looking for the land for the police department. Hopefully we can find something.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, any other questions?
Thank you, Bob Lyon again. Just to follow up on that comment, so the next step for the police station is to look for, evaluate, seek out possible properties, and then you mentioned something about if you can come to terms. Will there be a town vote like we had last time on purchasing the property?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will do that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pete Hoagland. Chris, I was just wondering, you had 5 years to do the reval, and you did it in 4. So I'm curious why you did that.
We were very much out of compliance with the state. And at the end of the day, for other portions of our tax rate, the equalization number is very important so that all property types are at the same level of assessment. So even for our county tax, the education tax, everything is based on the town's equalized value. So in all the aspects of the tax rate, there was some disproportion when it came to different property types of not being on the same level of assessment. So I decided to ask to go forward to the board in order to get that equalized value on the same level for everyone, so it's fair and proportionate.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just say one more thing on that?
Yeah.
I just want you to realize that this wasn't an anomaly for the state. Many of my colleagues throughout the state have pushed their assessment updates up 2 and 3 years just to catch up, because this has just been a catch-up.
Okay. Okay, I think there was another, yes?
Rich Epstein. There's an old saying that life is trade-offs, and I think everybody seemingly wants to support the police. At the same time, we're worried about costs. But is there a way to do maybe a more comprehensive look at costs? What other things we're spending money on? Maybe if we looked at them across the board, we'd say, oh, maybe spending money on the police is better than spending money someplace else, and work out those trade-offs?
We do that. That's what the Budget Committee does. They evaluate, where money should go. And so that process is going to start soon. And those meetings are open to the public, and I would advise you to come and hear how they're looking at things. The Planning Board also does a capital improvement program, and they make suggestions about what needs to be done. And as I believe Paul said, that we've had the police department on our radar for many, many years. And so obviously we haven't done it, so I think the Budget Committee takes a hard look at what needs to be done. So please come to those meetings. I would also ask that you all read Municipal Matters. Kim does a great job and the staff of getting out what's happening in town. All our minutes are posted, maybe not as timely in some instances, depending on our note taker, because she does have another job. So, those are all areas where you can read what's going on in town. We're not hiding anything, seriously. And, all our meetings are open and they're all public. So please come. Yeah, there was another question. Joe?
Chris, just a quick question on, you said we were at about 62% evaluation. I know you've got a handle on Sunapee and Newbury. I'm curious about other towns in the Kearsarge district, simply because that's a portion of our tax rate as well, will be the funding of the education for the district. So towns like Wilmette, Warner, Springfield, how did they fare? Were they in about the same position and facing the same resetting evaluation?
I don't really, I'm so busy focusing on these towns that I'm in charge of to know what's happening with them, but I do watch the market in the surrounding towns, and that they're going through the same thing. It's supply and demand. Many of them have contract assessors, so they're more scheduled as far as when they update their values and ratios. So I'm not really sure where they stand statistically right now, but it's something I could look into.
Okay. Yes? Bob Rex?
I've lived here since 2003, and I've been to numerous meetings. And the only thing I would like to remind everybody is that overanalysis leads to paralysis.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, John?
Chris, when would the next evaluation be, in 5 years or 6 years?
If the market continues the way it is, could be next year. Could be the year after. It depends on where we stand statistically with the state. The requirement is to revalue once every 5 years, if not sooner. So it's really up to the town government to decide based on recommendations by me or the state to update values as they see fit.
Okay. Celeste, and then, whoop.
I just want to thank you guys for doing this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the town people to come together without having to vote on anything, to hear what's going on, to voice their opinions. And I would highly recommend that maybe you do it twice a year.
Okay. All right.
And hopefully more people will come. It's really nice to see so many people here.
Okay. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you.
Bob Drent, I just have a question on the outing club. I know it's a private or quasi-private, quasi-public organization, but and they certainly expanded into having other fields there for athletics. But about 2 years ago, they took out a lot of trees, so there are a lot of exposed stumps and just growth coming back. It's looking like the continuum being reborn. And I was wondering if there are any intentions to clean that up, clean up the landscaping leading from the ball fields to the tennis courts, around the tennis courts.
Bob, I really can't speak for the outing club. I think the best thing is they do have a website, and find out who's on the board and maybe give one of those individuals a call, because, you know, we don't have that information.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. I know it was early, and we do hope to do this again. And seriously, as we progress on the police station and other goals we have, we will certainly, you know, let you all know, and maybe we'll do this right after Christmas or sometime in November, but we'll definitely get together again. And again, thank you for coming. We appreciate it.